In this lecture, we're going to learn about the if statement. And this is a statement that is going to allow you to do things based on some condition being true or false. Here is a simple code example. We have two variables, number 1 and number 2. And we have a statement here that is going to compare number 1 and number 2. And we're going to store the result in this Boolean variable that we have on the left. Then we're going to do something based on the value that we are storing in this result here. If the result in there is true, we're going to print number 1 is less than number 2. If the result is not true, we're going to say number 1 is not less than number 2. And notice in the first if clause here, we are testing for the case where the result is true. But sometimes we need to do something when this condition here is not true. One way to do that is to negate what we have here inside the if parenthesis and test for the reverse of whatever we have in here, if that is making any sense. If you look here, we are testing for the case where, if not, the result is true. And in other words, we are testing for the case where the result here is false. And we're going to say number 1 is not less than number 2. This is one way we can go about this. Again, the if statement is used to do conditional programming. This is the syntax we use to do it in C++. We say if, we put a set of parentheses, and inside the parentheses, we put the condition we want to test for. And after that, we're going to have a pair of curly braces. And what we have inside these curly braces is going to be the body of our if statement. And it is basically going to be the code we want to run if the test here is successful. We can also use an else clause to catch the case where the test hasn't been successful. In this case, we can say if result equals true, we're going to do something, and else, we're going to do something else. In other words, if result is true, we're going to say is less than. If it's not true, we're going to say is not less than. And this is a more compact way of doing what we just did in the slide here. You can also directly use your expression as a condition. And the requirement here is that the expression evaluates to something that we can treat like a Boolean, because the condition has to be a Boolean. It has to be true or false. Okay, here is another simple example. We have seen this in the last lecture. We have a few variables containing our conditions, and we are saying if the light is red, for example, we're going to do something. If it's yellow, we're going to do something. If it's green, we're going to do something. We can also nest conditions. For example, we can put our outer if statement, and inside that if statement, set up other if statements. And if our logic needs something like this, you can do this and you can take advantage of this to achieve whatever it is you want to do. In this case, if the light is green, we're going to fall in here and we're going to do another condition. So if the light is green and if the police officer has stopped you, you're going to stop. And if they haven't stopped you, you're going to go because the light is green. And you can do something like this. We can also use logical operators to kind of achieve the same thing. And we say, if the light is green and the police officer hasn't stopped you, you're going to go. Else, you're going to stop. And you can do something like this. And you see that you can combine the logical operators we've learned about with the conditional programming techniques we are learning about here to do really powerful stuff. And we're going to be doing this all over the place in the course. So we're going to head over to Visual Studio Code and play with us. Here we are in our working directory. We're going to be working on if statements, and we're going to grab our template project, the template files, I should say, and we're going to put them in here. And we're going to open this up in Visual Studio Code as we always do. So let's do that. Open folder, and we should fall in here and open our main CPP file. Let's do the usual and remove what we don't need. And we are going to put in our code so that we can really play with us. We have two variables in here, number 1 and number 2. They are integers and we have the values 55 and 60 inside. We can do a comparison between these two variables, and what this comparison is going to yield is a Boolean value that we're going to store in our Boolean variable here, which is called result. And what we can do is use this to do some conditional programming. So we're going to say if the result is true, we're going to do something. And if the result is not true, we're going to do something else. And this is how we say it. This syntax here may be confusing to new students, but try to think of it. If not, result is true. And that's really the same thing as saying if result is false. Try to spin this in your mind a little bit and you're really going to understand. Okay, so now that you have seen this piece of code, try to guess what we're going to see if we run this. What are we going to see on the console? Okay, give it a try. So we're going to run this in Visual Studio Code. Let's open up a terminal first. And we're going to build with GCC as we always do. We're going to bring this up a little bit so that we have some breathing room. And we're going to run Rooster. Let's see what we have here. We have result equals true. And that's coming from this statement here. And we have freestanding if statement, which is coming from here. And we have our meat of this program, what we really are interested in. We have 55 is less than 60. So our test here succeeded, and we fell in this body and executed this stdcout statement. That's why we're saying number 1 is less than number 2. And number 1 is 55, which is what we see here. And number 2 is 60, which is what we are seeing here. So what can we do to make the second statement here execute? You know, it is testing for the case where not result is true. So it's going to exactly do the reverse of what this test here is doing. And if this fails, this one is going to succeed, which is what we have now. So what we can do to really play with this, we can go up and change, for example, number 1 to 65. This is going to flip the order of these numbers, if I may say it like that. And if we run it, we're going to build with GCC and run this. We're going to see result is false. So result became false because number 1 is not less than number 2. So this is going to be false. And the test here is going to fail. Result is not true, so we're not going to go in here and look at here. If not, result is true. So result is true is false. If we negate this, this is going to become true, and this test here is going to succeed, and we are going to fall in here. Take some time to really understand this, and if you have a problem, ask me. I am going to do the best I can to help you out, but make sure you understand this, because this is really fundamental in your journey as a software developer, not just in C++. Any career as a software developer, you're going to need to understand this. Okay, what we're going to do is comment out what we just did here, because we're going to see another way to do this, and we don't want to have noise output in our terminal. This is going to just make things hard for us to see. So what we're going to do, we're going to go down in here and put in another piece of code. And the result was commented out. We don't want to comment that out. So we're going to take this out because this is our condition. We're going to grab it and put that outside our comment section. This is going to do. And if we go down again, we're going to click on this file icon and give ourselves some more breathing room here. We don't really need to see that main CPP file anyway. So if we come here, we can use the else clause to test for the case where our condition fails. And if you look here, we are essentially saying the same thing. We are saying if result equals true, we're going to fall in here, and else we're going to fall in here. So we don't need to do the double if statements that we just did here. And this is much more compact and easy to read. Let's look again at the numbers we have here. Number 1 is 65, number 2 is 60. This expression here is going to be false because 65 is not less than 60. We're going to have a false in here, and if we come down, result is going to be false, this is going to fail, and we are going to fall down here. We're going to say number 1 or 65 is not less than 60, which is what we have in our values. So we're going to build this again, and we're going to run Rooster. That's clear so that we have some breathing room. We're going to run Rooster, and you're going to see that 65 is not less than 60, which is what we expect. Again, if you go up and change these numbers to whatever you want, try to change these numbers to different values to see what you get as output. If we do this, we're going to see that number 1 is less than 60. So this is going to be true. And we're going to have a true in this result variable here. If we go down, result is true. This test condition here is going to succeed, and we are going to fall in here. Let's click in our terminal and hit enter. We're going to run Rooster. We're going to see 55 is less than 60, which is what we have here. Okay, now I hope you have a better idea of how you can use the else clause to make your if statements really compact. And this is really cool. Okay, another thing I want you to see is that you can not go through a variable like this and use an expression as a condition directly. C++ allows you to do this. So what we're going to do, we're going to comment out what we just did. Let's do that. I'm going to use a block comment. I hope you know how to use this already. And we're going to go down and put in our code. It is exactly the same thing, but we took the expression and put that in the place of our condition variable here, because this is going to evaluate to a Boolean anyway. So we can use this as a condition. And this is something very legal to do in C++. So if we run this, we're going to see, let's see what we have in the numbers. I have forgotten by now. So 55, number 1, 60, number 2. Number 1 is less than number 2. This is going to be true. So the test here is going to succeed, and we are going to fall in here. That's what we're going to say. We're going to build with GCC as usual, and going to clear and run Rooster, and you're going to see that this is the output we expect. If we change up the numbers again, let's take this and make it a 75, number 1. So number 1 is less than number 2 is going to evaluate to false. The test here is going to fail, and we are going to fall in this block here. We're going to fall in the else clause of our test here. We're going to say 75 is not less than 55. Is that what we have in there? It's a 60. But this block here is going to execute. That's the most important thing. So we're going to run this, and we're going to try and clear and run Rooster. We're going to get what we expect. This is one way we can do this, and it is really cool. Let's comment this out and see another example. And if we go down, we can see the example we saw in the slides, which was using red, green, and yellow to simulate a traffic light. So what we really want to see here is that we can nest stuff, but before we do that, we need to try and use these conditions because it is just fun. So if red is true, meaning that the red light is on, we're going to stop. If yellow is true, we're going to slow down. If green is true, we're going to go. And if we look at what we have here, red is false, green is true, false is true, and a police stop is true. Police stop is not really being used. So green is true. We're going to execute the green statement here, and we're going to say go. That's what we're going to say. Let's try and run this. We're going to build with GCC, bring this up a little bit so that we have some breathing room. And we're going to clear and run Rooster. And you see that it is saying, go here. You can try and change these Boolean variables to different things and see what is printed out here. This is a great way to learn. But what we really want to try here is nested statements. And let's go down and do that. Okay, so again, we don't want what we have on top here to disturb us. So we're going to comment this out. And we are going to go down and put in our code for nested if statements. So what we're going to say is if the light is green, we should go, but the police officer has the right to stop us even if the light is green. At least these are the laws in the country where I live. So we have a variable called police stop here. So if they stop you, even if the light is green, you're going to stop. And we're going to see what we see here. So if the light is green, we're going to fall in this body again, and we're going to run this inside or nested if statement. And if the officer has stopped us, we're going to stop. If they haven't stopped us, we're going to go and go on our merry way. This is what we want to see here. And again, I want you to stop for a moment, try to run this through your brain, and try to come up with the value we're going to see when we run this in Visual Studio Code. Pause for a minute. We're going to run this. We're going to build with GCC, and we're going to run a program, and you see that police officer stops, stop. And why is that? The light is green, okay, so we should usually go, but the police stop variable here is also true. So if we fall in here, this is going to execute and it is going to succeed, and we are going to say stop. And once this statement executes, the else statement is not going to execute. Control is going to fall outside here, and we're going to keep doing whatever we have outside this if statement here. This is really critical to understand. If one block of an if statement succeeds, all the others are not going to execute, and try to really understand this. Okay, we have seen this. We can now comment this out because we have something else I want to show you. We're going to comment this out. And that's that you can combine the if statements here or conditional programming with the logical operators we have learned about earlier in the course and do really powerful stuff. For example, here we can actually not use these nested statements and do this in one go like this. And I think this is much cleaner. So we're going to say if the light is green and the police officer hasn't stopped us, we're going to go. And if they have stopped us, we're going to stop. And you're going to see that we're going to get exactly the same result that we had before, but this is really much more compact. So we're going to run and see the result of this. And we're going to clear, and run Rooster. You're going to see that they're going to stop us. And this is really cool. You can go up again and change up these variables to really anything you want and see what you get and try to really understand what is going on here. It is not difficult, and the if statement is really fundamental to any programming you're going to do. So this is really all we set out to do in this lecture, to learn about conditional programming using the if statement. It is a powerful thing, and you're going to see it all over your software development career. So make sure you really understand this. But even if it's not clear now, we're going to have a chance to do many examples, and you're going to really understand what this is all about. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to see how we can use the else if clause. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.